Thank you, Ryan. Good morning and welcome to our Sunday worship service. My name is Trish Hartzell and I will be your celebrant this morning as I am filling in for Nancy Nelson, who decided not to share her virus with us. A few years ago, I noticed that many of the very best members of the community, the people who accomplish great work with love and empathy, happened to be members of this congregation. So I thought, wow, this is the place to be. And I joined. So I've only been here a year, but it's already had a big impact on my life. I think that this is a force here to be reckoned with, and a force that is really needed at this time, desperately needed. So I want to thank you for being the group of people that you are. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all of those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad that you are here. If you have come in person, you should have received a welcome packet with an information card on it. If you fill that out and drop it in the offering basket, the offering basket, that's the one that we put money into, you will receive a welcome packet with, we will be in touch with you to find out how we can support you in finding your way into our community. If you are joining us online, there's a link on our website to an electronic version of the same card. It's called a yellow card, but it's kind of a pale yellow as far as I'm concerned. Our welcoming committee members have a real yellow name tag. It's typically yellow tag right underneath the name tag, and they can answer any questions or point you toward additional information. Whether you are new or not, please consider staying for coffee and conversation after the service. Today is actually a special day. Either downstairs in the fellowship room, or if you're online, there's a Zoom room after the service. So we can go to our slide and welcoming. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now let's take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. There they are. So if you are at home, if you would please turn on your cameras so we can see your lovely faces. Now, if the people at home would please wave. I see waving, good. Now the people who are attending the service in our building, it's your turn to wave. And Ginger has a special announcement for us.
Good morning. I am Ginger Yoder. I am the Director of Faith Formation here at this church. And today is our special Stone Soup Sunday. You'll learn a little bit more about that soon. But the part you need to know now is that we do actually have a lot of soup. It's mostly chili and lentil chili and bean chili downstairs. Vegan and gluten-free, dairy-free, meat, all of the options after church. So please plan on staying for lunch after church if you'd like to. And we also need a couple extra helpers to help clean up all the soup bowls if you might be willing to stay for just a little bit longer and get some dishes done. Thanks so much.
One quick follow-on announcement. Today's Stone Soup service is an interactive service. So everybody should have at least one item on hand for donation to the little pantry, some food item or toiletry. Could you raise your hand if you do not have something to give? Could I get a volunteer to run around and grab something from the foyer to give to those folks with their hands raised? You'll want to have at least one. You can have more than one, but everybody should have one thing to give for today's service. Thank you.
Oh, wait, yeah, yeah.
We preface our service by acknowledging that this building was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimi Pu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse tribe, and the Chichuish, called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, grounds that cry out for justice and responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us to find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth. We are hoping that friends joining us via Zoom will have a chalice or a candle and something to light it with so that we can light our chalices together. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Uri, and I have been a member of this church for about 10 years now, and I think I've served in just about every role that you can get into without a divinity degree. So happy to be here with you today, and welcome to our Stone Soup service. Now, this isn't an annual service, it is one we do from time to time, and the last time we held this service was pretty close to the start of the pandemic. We actually did the whole thing by video and then showed the video over Zoom. And it's just a good reminder of the importance of community and generosity and sharing so that together we can find the collective abundance that might be hidden behind our individual scarcity. By sticking together, we didn't just survive those difficult times years ago, but we also, built a church while we were at it. No biggie. This building that we share, this is a monument to our amazing small, dedicated group of people can do when we work together. I'm sure many of us are now once again feeling depleted, as though we have nothing to give, that the problems facing us are too big for any individual effort to make a difference. And there is some truth to that. The good news is we are not limited to individual efforts. Like droplets that combine into rivulets, the rivulets that become the streams that become the rivers, and finally the oceans. When we each give what little we have, we begin the slow, steady, almost invisible process of transforming the world. Our gifts, however small, are enough. Just as we are, whatever our flaws and shortcomings, we are enough. So today, let's combine our meager gifts and our imperfect selves and witness the everyday miracle as generosity transforms scarcity into abundance right before our eyes. But first, we're going to practice by combining our less than perfect individual voices to create a beautiful harmony. Our opening hymn is number 407 in the gray hymnal. We're going to sit at the welcome table.
Well, that was an excellent way to spend Sunday morning. Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity. We typically give away all of the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is Backyard Harvest, whose mission is to connect low-income families, seniors, and individuals with fresh, local produce. Backyard Harvest relies on volunteers who share their backyard bounty and extra fruit to make sure that everyone in our community has healthy food to eat. For the past few years, actually for a long time, Backyard Harvest has provided fresh local fruit for the Weekend Food for Kids program to distribute to school kids during the summer when food support is not available through the schools. We look forward to working with them again soon. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check, if you're using a check, or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take some time to practice generosity together.
Thank you, Sam. We'll now have our time for the sharing of joys and sorrows. Do we have somebody here from the lay pastoral ministry team? Thank you, Fran. Well, thank you so much to our choir. That was lovely. And thank you to everybody who brought donations today. As you see, we got pretty massive haul for our little pantry. But I would note that our little pantry is open year-round, and it empties out just about as fast as we can fill it. That the need in this community is significant. So if you in future weeks and months, you can bring donations any Sunday. We have a basket downstairs to collect them, send them up with the kids at Time for All Ages, or just go put it right in the pantry. I mean, it's as easy as that. So thank you for your generosity, but just know that as big as that pile was, it won't get us through a full year. So thank you again. So why stone soup? I mean, the world is full of fairy tales and morality fables. Why don't we do services on The Boy Who Cried Wolf, or Chicken Little, or Goldilocks? I mean, we definitely could, and for all I know, will, but I think there are several reasons why this particular story resonates in UU communities and why we bring it back every few years as a reminder. So first off, this story is a direct refutation of the individualism and the greed that currently define American society. In fact, it vividly illustrates the deprivation and the poverty that these values invariably lead to. And then it contrasts them with the abundance that results from generosity and shared prosperity. No single villager had the means to make a soup, but the village as a whole did. Similarly, I couldn't have built this church in a lifetime by myself. Likely neither could any one of us, but together we did. True wealth is only ever found in community. And this story reminds us that the perception of scarcity can deprive us even more than actual scarcity. That we'll be better served by communal care than by self-care. And this is a lesson that bears repeating, especially since we're inundated every day with marketing messages that want to tell us just the opposite. After all, isolated, selfish, distrusting people make excellent consumers. But people who instead rely on one another, they make a community. Second, this story illustrates a concept I preached about here last year, namely that generosity isn't a one-way street. There's both giving and receiving, those willing to bear gifts and those willing to accept them. In this story, the village was not fed by the villagers' charity or abundance. I mean, can you imagine what a lousy story it'd be if the traveler just brought a whole cartload of food in and handed it out? We wouldn't talk about that. No, the village was fed by the traveler's hunger and by her need. The act of bringing together needs and gifts is what forges the bonds of community. Both are essential. Third, if there's any doubt that this is a fundamentally UU story, just check out the tapestries on the walls all around us. Generosity obviously permeates the whole story, but transformation, that is also illustrated in the way the community changes as a result of practicing generosity. Interdependence is demonstrated by the way the ingredients, mostly inedible on their own, or in our case, inedible and stop, combine to create something life-giving and nurturing. So too, the individual poverty of the villagers, it disguised a collective abundance just waiting beneath the surface. That too is how interdependence works. See, pluralism, well, that's found in the ingredients themselves. I mean, if every villager had brought the exact same ingredients, it wouldn't have been much of a soup. Equity, over there, is found in everyone giving what they have and everyone receiving what they need. Justice, that's feeding the hungry and giving shelter to the unhoused. And love is at the center, of course. Where life is nurtured, there is love. Where trust overcomes fear, there is love. And where a warm meal is shared with friends, there too is love. The overriding message behind all of this is the idea of collective abundance. Collective abundance. Even while we may feel individually lacking and deprived, when we come together, we can discover opportunities and resources that otherwise simply wouldn't exist. I know Elizabeth always likes to throw in a little science into the homilies, so I'm going to give it a shot. Is everyone familiar with the concept of emergent properties? So this is a scientific concept, and it refers to the properties of complex systems that you could never predict, even if you had perfect knowledge of the individual pieces that go into the system. So for example, even if you had complete and total knowledge of the water molecule, you could never predict snowstorms and tidal waves. Another example is found in termites. So they have this fun experiment. If you take 3 or 4 termites and put them in a jar with some dirt and pebbles and stuff, they'll wander around pretty much randomly, pick up a stone, move it here, nothing happens. But when you achieve a critical mass of around a dozen, all of a sudden they'll spontaneously start to form arches and walls and tunnels, and given enough time, a full termite's nest with all the complexity of that. Again, even if you knew everything there was to know about a termite, you could never predict what happens in a community of them. So emergent properties are that something more, that synergy, if you will, that comes from collaborative functioning, the whole being more than the sum of the parts. Stone soup is the story of an emergent property, namely that when we combine our unique and diverse gifts, we create something that's literally more than the components that went into it. In fact, you could argue that every gift of human civilization and culture reflects this kind of emergence. Stone soup is the story of the abundance that ensues when we give up some of our individual greed and give it to the collective good. The essence of our American culture today, more like your responsibility, is why in many ways our culture doesn't really function as a culture anymore. Instead of working together to build safer communities, we buy private security systems. Instead of investing in safer, cheaper, greener public transportation, we spend mind-boggling sums of time, money, and lost lives on private car ownership. Even as people are driven to bankruptcy and death by exorbitant medical bills, many still see universal health care as the bigger threat. Imagine the public parks we'd have if we combined all the resources we now invest in private yards. Or the libraries we'd have if we combined all the money we now spend on books, music, movies, and magazines for ourselves alone. Or how open and expansive the whole world would feel if we shared the land instead of fencing ourselves into nice little rectangles. And the same thing for private pools, home theaters, home gyms, the 1,000 other ways we choose ownership and control over community. Right down to the socializing on our phones while we're ignoring the people around us who are also socializing on their phones. Is it any wonder we have an epidemic of loneliness when we spend every waking hour trying to be self-sufficient? So let that go. Our individualistic culture tries to boil us all down to sellers and consumers, but profit is a sorry substitute for community. Moreover, the wastefulness of every person needing to own one of everything, it deprives us of the fruits of our material abundance, even as we bear the environmental and social costs in full. In the days to come, there will definitely be times when we each feel completely empty, when we feel like we just don't have enough hope, enough love, or enough kindness to share. Those are the times when we need to give the most. When we cling to what we have, it's never enough. But if we all give what little we have, we'll all have what we need. When times of scarcity and deprivation inevitably arrive, please gather what little you have and bring it here, that we may all leave more full than when we came. Please join me now in singing our closing hymn, a classic favorite, number 1064 in the Blue Books, Blue Boat Home. Please rise. So much. Our closing reading today is from Sidney K. Wilde, and it's a short but sweet one. In this community, we give and we receive. May we go forth now to share the bounty of our love. Please join me in singing our sung benediction, There is a Love. Please join me now in the words for extinguishing the chalice. And if somebody would be so kind. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. If we all give what we have, we'll all have what we need. The faith that this is so is the bedrock on which community is built. This trust is what binds us in fellowship, to know that to give is not to deprive ourselves, but to open ourselves to a greater abundance, because everything we need is already right here. I hope you'll join me downstairs now for coffee, bread, and a steaming bowl of stone soup, minus the dog food, and I hope to see you back next week. Thank you and blessed be.